Hi, this is Michelle from Movement Lesson. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos. This is something I'll be covering more as I get into a training program. How I look at it is functional anatomy. Now, most people look at an anatomy as anatomical functions. That's great. However, as an example, if I'm looking at this elbow as a hinge joint, that doesn't mean I can feed myself because of what goes on in the rest of the system, my counterbalance, my rotation to bring food up to my mouth versus somehow finding a way of moving this. I'm looking for functional movement patterns, how to enhance them into anybody's system, not to look what's wrong with them. So it's a different concept that most people are used to, but I just want to sort of explain the difference of movement and bone function. So again, just looking at the cuff, I get it that it's a ball and socket. So if I go around like this, I'm using very little muscle because I'm doing most of the throw through my back to spin this arm around. Now if I change that into more of a muscle-based function as a lift, I can lift my arm in many different ways around that rotator cuff. But what you're missing here is the rotation. Now if I only had just up to my elbows, as if, and we'll do it this way. So let's just say I only had up to my elbows. Then I truly have just a rotator cuff. It's just a ball and socket joint and my arm's going to spin around. But what I'm not going to have is any kind of torque through my system. So if I reach for something, I reach for something. Because the concept of the elbows to the arms as well as the wrists to the arms creates what I call a torque. So I'm not, see how to twist my chest cavity is very difficult. It's the elbows that create, and see, and now I have counterbalance, I have rotation through my system. Again, the wrists, all of these are involved, but I'm just going to stick with these dynamics. So technically too with my arms, if I go to lean forward, see, my arms should just naturally find, in a sense, the floor. Whether I go this way or that way. Now again, I could have purposeful placement where I go into a lift load kind of thing. Same thing with here. So if I'm walking, my arms should just be working off of my counterbalance and rotation. Same thing if I go to jump. See, I can just throw my arms up in the air versus most people, in a sense, they're used to jumping where they have their arms engaged. Both are functions, but one is not necessarily ideal. So if I was, let's say, playing golf, I want my arms to suddenly just swing into action versus lifting and almost being like a hatchet job. That's not the purpose. I'm there to just, in a sense, throw my weight around, which I do quite well. So I just want to show this to you on Frank. Now again here, clavicle, chest cavity, scapula. I'm really, and this is humorous, I'm not going to go into more than that. There are many other professionals that go into this. What I'm just trying to get you away from is looking at the body as anatomical function. Now Frank can only do so much because he's wired and all of that to stay together as well. But so you can see this kind of function doesn't happen other than this is meant to go around and around. The beauty of that elbow, and I have an elbow dislocated to show you, is what starts to twist and torque. But see what the shoulder starts to do. It balances and counterbalances. Or like they like to say, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction with that elbow. So if you look, if I just have here, I have both the ulna and the radius. So really what you're seeing here is olecranon process. But what you're seeing too is that hollowed scoop, the way it attaches to the humerus. I'm going to have it just attach into my fingers. It's just like a wrench. So you can really see one of the many torque processes that's very important on the rotation and that balance and counterbalance through the human system. You'll see more if you just look into the wrist, the nodules that go into each other, again, to turn this mechanism. Another misconception is that the ulna only goes around the radius. So here too, this is where you see complications in stroke, cerebral palsy, and many other different things. Autism. Why can't autistic kids can't point? It's because of the lack of rotation through the system. So when I have my arm here and I'm going around into extension, but see how the ulna, I wish I could take my hand off, but I can't. But my ulna, the radius, should be able to be equal in those rotations. It's another misconception that the ulna stays stagnant, because again, if you're only dealing with the hinge joint, then yes, they are correct to say the ulna stays, or the radius is the only bone that rotates. Well, that's completely not true, because it's not just a hinge joint. It's a much more complex system. So if you're looking the way the hand comes around, but any time that you see where there's contractures that are going on in the hand, or the hand is low tone, or again, where you've got the spasticity going on because of, like I said, stroke or cerebral palsy, any other thing, what that does is it ruins this whole relationship, or I should say traumatizes that rotational conversation of the elbow. So you'll see that the elbow never crosses midline, in a sense, through the elbow as the arm, because see, I go here, see how the elbow goes up? Again, that counter. So these are some things that I discuss and work with in movement lesson, is the function of movement versus anatomical function. So I get it, I know where your pieces and parts are, but again, if I had scoliosis, if my back had a curvature like this, look at the relationship of this rotator cuff and where the arm is at. So is that person limited in their position? Or again, do we find ways of these kind of conversations so they can still have these powers and then regain or have enhanced movement to what their system knows, versus looking at the system saying, you can't do that because you do not look like a perfect skeletal system. We all come in all sizes and shapes, as well as limitations either due to trauma of some sort. Just falling down once can throw someone's life. So it doesn't take to all people this massive accident or trauma or genetics. So always look at somebody as how you can enhance your movements versus what's wrong with them. What's wrong with them is there more so for your medical and what needs to be done to help that person medically. But you always want to enhance. I want to enhance my life, but the only way my life is going to be enhanced is really through movement. And that's one way to think about it. So if you're interested in more of those conversations, you'll find them on my subscription site as we start this new series.
The Newborn Movement Assessment Guide is available at Amazon.com and at the newbornmovementassessment.com website.
By joining this exciting community, you will learn how to help infants from the moment that they enter the world and change the lives of countless children and families. Out of necessity to help a globally delayed child,